Have you ever felt that a relationship in your life is eroding your peace, confidence, and sense of self-worth? In today's video, we're going to explore 9 clear signs that it's time to end all contact, even if it's with a close friend or family member. Imagine this. Is there someone in your life who constantly makes you feel guilty, judged, or as if you're only valuable when you please them? As Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Creating distance isn't selfish. It's a necessary step to protect your peace and self-respect. This video will not only help you recognize these dangerous red flags, but also provide you with powerful tools to confront them without guilt or hesitation. Make sure to watch until the end, because I'll reveal the most subtle yet common sign, one that many of us overlook, and how you can free yourself from it forever. Before we dive in, if you find value in these insights, please hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss any essential content that strengthens your spirit and enriches your relationships. Now, let's embark on the journey to reclaim the freedom and respect you truly deserve. First, avoid people who don't spend money. Have you ever met someone whose first words to you were about not having money? It's easy to empathize if they're truly struggling. But oddly enough, these individuals often lead a comfortable life, enjoying their personal pleasures, indulging in trips or hobbies. Yet, when it comes to you, they suddenly bring up financial excuses to avoid responsibility or obligations. This isn't about poverty. It's about calculated behavior. If you've been in such a situation, take a moment to reflect. This is not a sign of a balanced or genuine relationship. I once had a friend like this. Every time we planned something, he always had an excuse about not having enough money. But I noticed he had no hesitation spending on personal luxuries or impressing others. One day, when he declined a trip we had planned together, I realized the issue wasn't his financial capacity, it was his lack of value for my presence. That was the moment I understood such relationships can't endure, as they aren't built on fairness or genuine care. In any relationship, whether it's with friends, family, or a partner, mutual sharing and support are essential. If you feel like you're always the one giving while the other person simply takes advantage without reciprocating, the relationship has become unbalanced and potentially burdensome for you. Remember, good relationships are founded on equality, respect, and mutual care. If someone views you only as a resource, don't hesitate to set clear boundaries, or even step away from that relationship. Your life deserves to be filled with connections that bring joy, empathy, and true value. Second, avoid people who often quarrel and take sides. Have you ever felt like you're caught in a relationship where every conversation turns into a battle? This is exactly what happens when you deal with people who never stop arguing. These individuals not only blow minor issues out of proportion, but also drag you into their conflicts, forcing you to pick sides. They don't just exhaust their own lives, but also drain the peace out of your relationship. Let me share a personal experience. I once had a friend like that. He seemed confident on the surface, but whenever there was a difference of opinion, he would immediately escalate it into a heated argument. One time, during a casual gathering with friends, we were discussing plans for a trip, and a minor disagreement arose. He pulled me into the argument, insisting I back him up in front of everyone. That moment changed our friendship forever. I realized that if someone frequently stirs up conflicts and pressures others to take their side, maintaining a balanced and healthy relationship with them becomes impossible. Arguing is not a sign of intelligence or strength. On the contrary, it reflects a lack of emotional control and an inner sense of insecurity. People who argue constantly not only harm their relationships, but also miss opportunities for personal growth. A wise person doesn't need to win every debate. Instead, they prioritize peace, understanding, and resolving issues calmly. If you find yourself stuck in a pattern of frequent arguments or often being drawn into unnecessary conflicts, take a moment to pause and reflect. Cultivating calmness doesn't just protect your relationships, it also safeguards your inner peace. In life, harmonious connections and a tranquil mind are the treasures worth cherishing. Third, avoid people who take other people's worries lightly. In the journey of life, each of us carries our own unique burdens, no two the same. Worries, joys, and sorrows hold relative value, immeasurable by a common scale. Yet one of life's greatest disappointments is when we share our struggles, only to encounter people who magnify their own burdens while diminishing or dismissing ours. This isn't just a lack of respect. It's a behavior that erodes trust and drains the foundation of any relationship. I remember a moment when I confided in a longtime friend about the challenges of balancing work while caring for my aging parents. Instead of offering empathy, he glossed over my concerns and immediately shifted the conversation to his work pressures, as if my struggles didn't exist. That experience didn't just leave me disappointed, it deeply hurt. I realized then that relationships can only flourish when both sides respect and truly listen to each other, valuing one another's struggles as they would want their own to be valued. Respect isn't a grand gesture. It's often found in the simplest of actions. It lies in expressing genuine gratitude, saying thank you when someone helps, or apologizing sincerely when you've caused hurt. These words, when spoken from the heart, are not mere courtesies, but the bedrock of meaningful relationships. It's vital to distance yourself from those who lack gratitude, those who cannot celebrate your successes or empathize with your pain. A person who finds joy in others' suffering lacks compassion, and this lack of respect isn't just toxic, it reveals a chilling indifference. While we can't control how others behave, we can choose the people we allow into our lives. Build relationships founded on respect, gratitude, and heartfelt care. Surround yourself with those who share in your joy, console you in your sorrow, and genuinely wish for your happiness. Never revel in someone else's suffering. Not only does it wound them, but it also diminishes your own humanity. By living with compassion, you won't just nurture beautiful relationships, you'll create a life that's deeply meaningful and worth cherishing. Fourth, avoid anyone who enforces your religious or political beliefs. None of us are exactly the same, and that is the true beauty of human relationships. The real meaning of connection lies not in imposing ourselves on others, but in recognizing and appreciating differences, building shared values from them. However, there are people who incessantly try to impose their beliefs on others, whether it's religion or politics, and this behavior not only exhausts us, but also creates deep fractures in relationships. I remember an old friend who was once very close to me. Every time we spoke, he would try to convince me that his way of life was the only correct one, that I needed to change my beliefs. Initially, I engaged in debates with him, trying to defend my perspective, but after every conversation, I felt emotionally drained. Over time, I realized that these arguments didn't lead to any understanding. They only pushed us further apart. Pointless arguments often fail to resolve anything. When both sides are determined to defend their egos, the conversation turns into a battle where both lose. Even if you win the argument, the satisfaction is fleeting and often comes at the expense of someone else's pride. The most significant consequence isn't just the loss of respect, but the lingering resentment and the lasting wounds you may have unknowingly inflicted. Wise people never argue just to prove they're right. Instead, they listen, empathize, and know when to step back. True victory in a relationship isn't about defeating the other person. It's about overcoming your own ego to find harmony and understanding together. You'll discover that letting go of the need to always be right not only strengthens relationships, but also brings a deep sense of inner peace, something no argument can ever achieve. If you made it this far, comment below with peacefulness so I can recognize you. Let's continue learning, growing, and building better lives together. Fifth, if you feel distressed when you meet a friend, avoid that friend. Have you ever realized that the people who once brought you so much joy and laughter now seem a little distant? It doesn't necessarily mean you did something wrong or that they've changed for the worse. It simply means time has taken both of you on different paths. Life is constantly evolving, and so are we. Our interests, values, and perspectives naturally shift over time, and sometimes relationships that once felt perfectly in sync begin to feel out of tune. I recall a story from a colleague of mine. He spoke about a childhood friend with whom he had shared countless unforgettable moments, from going to the movies, playing sports, to dreaming about their futures together. But life eventually took them in opposite directions. One moved to a new city, building a career and family, while the other stayed in their hometown, leading a simpler life. The rare times they reconnected weren't the same anymore. Their conversations felt forced, filled with polite questions and an underlying sense of unfamiliarity. My colleague confessed that initially he tried hard to preserve the friendship. But the more he tried, the more he realized that they had grown too far apart to find the connection they once had. Instead of clinging to what was, he chose to step back. Not because he no longer cared for his friend, but because he understood that sometimes letting go is the only way to honor the changes they'd both undergone. Relationships are like a dance, requiring both partners to move in harmony. When the rhythm no longer aligns, both sides feel awkward and drained. Rather than blaming yourself or the other person, sometimes stepping back and accepting the change is the wisest choice. It doesn't mean erasing someone from your life, but creating space for both of you to grow in your own ways. A gentle parting can often be healthier than forcing a connection that no longer fits. Life is full of change, and so are relationships. The key is knowing when to hold on and when to move forward. Cherish the memories you've shared, but don't be afraid to let the relationship become a treasured part of your past. Sometimes letting go isn't just about respecting the other person. It's also about respecting yourself. Sixth, avoid those who continue to complain about themselves. Have you ever felt like an emotional dumpster, a place where someone comes only to unload their sadness, frustration, and endless complaints? Every person needs to share, to have a shoulder to lean on during tough times, but that sharing should come from empathy, not selfishness. Someone who constantly complains without caring about your feelings is not seeking companionship. They're using you as a receptacle for their burdens. This doesn't just exhaust you, it can pull you into a vortex of negative emotions that aren't yours to carry. I remember a friend named Sarah, a former colleague I was once very close to. There was a time when my mother became critically ill and I was juggling work and caring for her. It was a period when I desperately needed emotional support. But Sarah kept coming to me every day, not to check on me or offer comfort, but to unload her trivial grievances. I hate this job. My boss is awful. My husband never helps with anything. Even though I was exhausted and emotionally drained, she never paused to ask how I was doing. When I tried to shift the conversation and share my worries about my mother, she quickly pivoted back to her own issues. Every interaction with Sarah felt like being caught in an emotional whirlwind, leaving me drained and at times feeling guilty for not being able to help her. One day, after my mother had undergone a major surgery, Sarah called to complain that I hadn't responded to her messages quickly enough. That was the moment I realized I needed to set boundaries. I told her, "Sarah, I can't keep doing this. I have too much on my plate right now, and I need the people around me to understand and share the load." Her response was a long silence, followed by growing distance between us. It was painful, but I knew it was the right decision to protect my well-being. We need to recognize that not all sadness deserves to be shared, and no one is obligated to be anyone's emotional dumping ground. Don't allow yourself to become the receptacle for someone else's misery if they're not truly seeking resolution. Learn to listen selectively, establish boundaries, and prioritize your time for those who genuinely care about your feelings. Remember, listening is not just about hearing. It's about observing and empathizing. Use your ears and your heart to cultivate meaningful relationships where both sides feel valued and understood. Above all, don't expect too much from others. The world isn't always kind, but you can always choose to be kind to yourself. 7th, avoid people who take promises lightly or break them easily. Have you ever waited for someone who never showed up, offering only a flimsy excuse? Or worse, no explanation at all? How does it feel to realize you're not a priority in someone's life? A promise is more than just words. It's a commitment, a demonstration of respect and trust. But the most heartbreaking realization is when someone not only breaks their promises, but also forgets they ever made one. This doesn't just erode trust, it makes you feel like an afterthought in their life. I remember one time sitting at my favorite coffee shop, waiting for a friend as we had planned. At first, I thought maybe she was running late due to traffic or something urgent. But after an hour, I received a message. "Totally forgot we had plans today. Sorry." This wasn't the first time it had happened, and I realized that continuing to endure this was only hurting myself. She didn't intend to hurt me, but her lack of attention and failure to honor her word spoke volumes. When a relationship becomes an emotional burden, when respect and commitment are no longer the foundation, it's time to seriously rethink it. Remember, respecting yourself sometimes means letting go of relationships that no longer bring value. A healthy relationship is never built on empty promises or indifference. Listen to your own feelings. You deserve relationships where both sides value each other. And if someone cannot do that, don't hesitate to walk away. Every time you say no to those who don't respect you, you're creating space for better people to enter your life. Always remember, you're not only worthy of love but also deserving of respect, in both words and actions. 8th, avoid people who keep talking about the same worries. Have you ever felt that when someone shares their worries with you, they're not really seeking a solution but simply looking for temporary comfort? This isn't inherently wrong, as the need to share and seek empathy is a natural human instinct. However, if you often find yourself dealing with someone who repeatedly brings up the same issues without ever attempting to address them, or worse, dismisses your advice in favor of hearing only what they want, you may start to realize that this relationship isn't fostering growth, but is instead keeping both of you stuck. I once had a former colleague who frequently came to me to complain about work. At first, I believed she just needed someone to share her frustrations with, so I listened attentively and even took the time to provide specific suggestions to help her improve her situation. But time after time, she dismissed my advice and returned to the same complaints in every conversation. Eventually, I realized that she wasn't truly interested in changing her circumstances. She just wanted validation for her worries. One day, I decided to take a different approach. I told her, "I really value our relationship, but I feel that if we keep going in circles like this, it's not helping either of us. If you genuinely want to improve things, I'm here to help, but that has to start with you." She didn't take it well, but I knew I had done the right thing. Listening to others is a beautiful act of kindness, but listening without creating meaningful progress can drain the energy of both parties. If you're truly a good friend, be brave enough to offer honest advice, even if it's difficult to hear. Lasting friendships aren't built on shallow sympathy. They're founded on mutual support and encouragement to help each other grow. Remember, kindness isn't just about providing comfort in tough times. It's about helping someone overcome their challenges, even if it requires honesty and firmness. Ninth, avoid people who boast excessively. Have you ever met someone who always brings the conversation back to their glorious past achievements? They recount their accomplishments as if those moments were the only valuable parts of their lives. At first, you might find it interesting or even admirable, but over time, you realize these stories are merely a facade to hide a lack of joy and meaning in their present life. This not only makes the relationship feel superficial, but also highlights their struggle to move forward. I once knew someone who would constantly talk about the prestigious awards he had won years ago. Every chance he got, he would recount every detail of his triumphs. However, when it came to discussing his current life, he would often deflect or avoid the topic. It was clear he was stuck in the past, clinging to old achievements as his only source of self-worth. The saddest part was that, instead of admiration, he gradually caused people to distance themselves from him. We need to understand that boasting about the past doesn't elevate our worth in the eyes of others. Instead, it can make listeners feel undervalued or disconnected. A truly confident and happy individual focuses on the present and doesn't need to flaunt past glories. Let your current life be the most compelling evidence of your value. Humility not only makes you more likable, but also strengthens your relationships with authenticity and mutual respect. As the old saying goes, silence is golden, and those who understand this are often the most deeply valued individuals. I would love to hear about your journey and triumphs. Please hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and leave a comment below to share your story, your successes, and even the challenges you've overcome. If you're not sure what to comment, just write peacefulness to show that you've completed this session. Your engagement helps this community grow toward wisdom and the art of turning every challenge into an opportunity. I'll leave 2 more videos here so you can continue learning and growing on your personal development journey. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.